Have you ever told yourself, this time I'm going to change, you'll stop getting angry? Have you stood before a shrine or altar, promising to uphold the precepts, to never fall back into old destructive habits, and yet, within days, sometimes hours, your temper flares, your frustration explodes, and you find yourself back where you started? Why does this keep happening? Why can't we hold on to our spiritual commitments even when we genuinely want to? Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I'm glad you're here today because what we're diving into is one of the most essential and overlooked aspects of spiritual life. Based on the teachings of Venerable Master Jingji, we'll explore a concept that might change the entire trajectory of your practice: the relationship between anger and the collapse of spiritual discipline. Master Jingji doesn't mince words. He says, to protect your precepts, the first thing you must do is subdue your anger. That's not a suggestion, it's a profound revelation. In today's video, we're not just going to skim the surface, we're going to dig deep into how and why anger silently sabotages your vows, your precepts, and your entire spiritual journey. Let's begin by understanding a crucial distinction. Most people assume breaking a precept is an external act, lying, stealing, or harming others. But the true decay starts within, begins when the fire of anger consumes the mind, cracks the foundation of your inner discipline, and tears apart the invisible fabric of your vow. What is anger, really? It's not just yelling or slamming doors. It's irritation. It's resentment. It's that boiling feeling when someone cuts you off mid-sentence or when life doesn't go your way. It's the subtle grudge you hold against someone who offended you years ago. All of it, rage, annoyance, bitterness, is what Buddhism calls krodha or klasha, mental defilements. Anger is one of the three poisons: greed, hatred, and ignorance. And among these, hatred or anger is arguably the most immediately destructive. Imagine this: you've built up a peaceful forest through years of kindness, meditation, generosity, and mindfulness, but a single match of anger can burn that entire forest to ashes. That's not just a poetic metaphor. Buddhist scriptures say, one moment of anger opens the gates to 100,000 obstacles. A single burst of rage can burn the forest of merits accumulated over lifetimes. The damage isn't just spirituality's karmic. The ripple effects of unchecked anger extend far beyond the moment. You may have cultivated patience for months. You may have avoided conflict and made sacrifices. But if one moment of unguarded rage causes you to lash out verbally, emotionally, even silently into what you've planted the seeds of future suffering. Let's bring this home with a relatable scenario. Imagine a practitioner who diligently avoids harsh speech. They meditate every morning, avoid gossip, and keep a calm demeanor. One day, someone they love says something insensitive, hits a nerve. The practitioner explodes, and not just with words, but internally with judgment and emotional withdrawal. Externally, it may seem minor, but internally, they fractured the very foundation of their vow to practice compassion and mindfulness. Master Jingji explains that the precepts, the invisible spiritual contracts we make with ourselves and the universe, are not maintained by rituals or by external affirmations. They are held together by pure intention and emotional restraint. The precepts are a mental field, a moral atmosphere that surrounds you. If anger enters that field unchecked, it's like acid corroding steel, where resolve begins to erode. And it gets worse. When anger becomes habitual, you form a karmic pattern, the moral, energetic groove that makes it easier and easier to get angry again. Each outburst weakens your resistance. Eventually, even minor irritations will trigger intense reactions. You're no longer breaking precepts, existing in a state where they no longer apply. You've become spiritually unrecognizable, even to yourself. This is why so many people feel stuck. It's not that they lack discipline, it's that their internal foundation has been repeatedly shaken by emotional reactivity. But here's where things get hopeful. Just as anger is a habit, so is calm. Just as frustration grows through repetition, so does compassion. Every time you choose not to react, not to take offense, not to speak with aggression or rebuilding your precept body, or reinforcing your vow with real-time action. It's not glamorous, it's often unnoticed, but this is the soil where awakening begins. Master Chingji emphasizes that the first and most essential act in protecting your vow is to work on your temper, not your scriptural knowledge, not your chanting schedule, not your temple attendance, your temper. Why? Because even the most beautiful lotus will wilt in a poison pond. Your heart, your emotional landscape, must be pure if your spiritual efforts are to take root. The precept body isn't something you're granted, something you maintain, moment by moment, through mental vigilance. If the mind becomes a battlefield of resentment, your precepts have already been violated in spirit, even if not in form. In the next part of this video, we'll go deeper, much deeper into personal stories, ancient wisdom, and practical steps to reclaim your inner discipline. We'll explore how anger disguises itself, how it fools you into thinking you're justified, and how the Buddha taught us to tame this inner beast. You'll hear examples of practitioners who overcame tremendous emotional storms to protect their vows, and how their lives were transformed. So stay tuned. You're about to begin one of the most profound journeys of self-restraint, self-understanding, and spiritual rebirth. Now, let's take a journey, not through theories, but through the real, raw, and often painful stories of practitioners who have walked this path before us. These stories are not just narratives. They are mirrors, invitations to look within, to ask hard questions, and perhaps to make the most important changes of our lives. There was once a monk named Shenru who had taken strict vows in his early 20s. His discipline was admired by his peers. He fasted regularly, meditated daily, and led chanting ceremonies with unwavering focus. Yet behind the silence of his lips, his heart simmered with irritation. He couldn't stand the noise of lay practitioners in the courtyard. He often found himself judging the devotion of others. Though he never raised his voice, his thoughts were sharp, slicing through every imperfection he saw around him. One day, during a group retreat, a novice accidentally spilled hot tea on Chermu's robe. Simple mistake, but in that moment, decades of unprocessed resentment erupted. He screamed, he cursed, he walked out of the hall, throwing his beads on the ground, shocked everyone. Later, in private, Shenru wept. I thought I had conquered anger, he confessed to the abbot. But I only buried it. The abbot's reply was unforgettable. Burying poison doesn't remove its sting. You must extract it, study it, understand its nature. Only then does it lose power. This is the essence of Buddhist practicing, not hiding from your afflictions, but facing them directly. Anger is not a sin, it's a signal. Tells you that something in your mind is resisting reality. Maybe it's pride, maybe it's fear, maybe it's a wound from long ago. But when you meet anger with mindfulness instead of reaction, it transforms, teaches, softens. Let's look at a more modern example. young woman named Anna, living in New York City, began practicing Buddhism after a painful breakup. Her ex-partner had betrayed her trust, and although she sought healing in temples and books, her heart still carried deep resentment. Every time he heard his name, her body tensed. Every time he saw couples on the subway, he rolled her eyes. Her friends noticed her sarcasm deepening. Her laughter became sharper, almost bitter. One day, during a silent retreat, the teacher spoke about the invisible damage of anger, and not to others, but to ourselves. Anger, he said, is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. Those words pierced Anna. He realized that every time he clung to her bitterness, she wasn't punishing her ex, she was punishing herself. So she began a new vow to catch the anger, hold it, and breathe through it, not to suppress it, but to witness it, to be curious. What does this anger want to tell me? Where is the hurt it's guarding? Can I hold this hurt with compassion instead of rage? Months later, Anna didn't feel triggered, but she felt free. The weight had shifted. He could recall the past without clenching. He could smile at love, even if it wasn't harass. This too is spiritual progress. Now, let's look at the deeper teachings of the Buddha and his disciples on anger. The Upanishad Sutta, the Buddha teaches that anger rises from ignorance, not ignorance in the modern sense of lack of knowledge, but of it the fundamental misunderstanding of reality. We get angry because we believe things should go a certain way. When they don't, we resist, we push, we burn. But what if you could accept that things will often not go your way? What if you understood that people act from their own suffering, not to target you personally? What if you could see every trigger as a teacher? One of the most powerful metaphors in Buddhist psychology is that of the mirror mind. Imagine your mind is like a mirror. It reflects everything: joy, sorrow, insult, praise, but it holds on to nothing. When anger rises, the mirror sees it, reflects it, but doesn't cling to it. This is the mind of equanimity, of deep inner stillness. Let's return to the idea of the preset body. Master Chingji describes it not as a rule book, but as an energetic field created by your vows. When you commit to non-harming, to truthfulness, to restraint, you are building a kind of invisible armor. But this armor isn't made of metal, it's made of intention. And like any intention, it must be maintained. You must return to it daily. Like tending a fire, anger is the wind that threatens to blow it out. That's why Buddhist practice emphasizes patience, but not passive patience. It's an active, vigilant, loving patience. So, what do we do when we feel anger rising? Here are some practices derived from Buddhist teachings. Us. Literally stop, don't speak, don't act, just breathe. Name the emotion. This is anger. Naming helps create distance. Feel it in the body. Where is the heat, the tightness? Ask what expectation was broken. What am I afraid of? Visualize your vow. Remember your commitment to non-harm, to truth, to compassion. Over time, this practice turns anger from a threat into a doorway, the gateway into deeper understanding. Think of great masters. Think of Buddha when he was insulted. He didn't react, he smiled. Why? Because his mirror mind was clear. He saw through the illusion. He knew that another's anger is their suffering spilling out, not a reflection of his worth. In our modern world, we're conditioned to fight back, to be right, to win. But spiritual practice isn't about winning, it's about seeing clearly. And the clearer you see, the less you need to react. One more story before we transition. There was a Japanese semester named Hakuin. He was once falsely accused by a young girl of being the father of her unborn child. When the villagers brought her to him, shaming him, he simply said, "Is that so?" He took care of the child for months, ever protested, ever defended. When the girl finally confessed that he wasn't the father and the villagers came to apologize, he again said, "Is that so?" This is not indifference. It is mastery. It's the result of a mind that has surrendered to reality, that no longer clings to identity, pride, or anger. Now ask yourself, what would my life look like if I stopped reacting to every insult? What if I valued peace more than being right? What if I treated my anger not as an enemy, but as a teacher? We've now traveled far into the territory of inner transformation, but there is one final section to cover: the aftermath, the growth, the shift, a new you. And we'll begin that now. Let's take this final journey together, the journey that doesn't just explain the problem, but transforms your entire relationship with anger, discipline, and your inner path. Let's begin by returning to the core question: why can't I stay committed to my spiritual practice? The answer, as Master Ching-ji said so clearly, lies in your relationship with your own anger. And so, what does the path forward look like? Begins with honesty. You must acknowledge your tendencies, your triggers, and your emotional patterns, not to judge yourself, but to become intimately familiar with the terrain of your own mind. Like a gardener must know where the weeds grow, you must know where resentment lingers. From honesty comes acceptance. You are not broken because you get angry. You are human. Anger is not a flaw. It's a fire. Left unchecked, it burns. But harnessed with wisdom, it can forge strength, courage, and clarity. Then comes training, illy. Moment by moment, commitment not just to avoid shouting or slamming doors, but to cultivate the opposite of anger: compassion, patience, and loving kindness. You can begin each day with a vow. Today, I will not let anger dictate my actions. I will notice. I will breathe. I will choose peace. You may fail. That's okay. The power is in returning, recommitting, again and again. Let's imagine a day in the life of someone who is training in this way. They wake up, they sit in silence, they recall the suffering they've caused through past anger, they generate the intention to do better, not for pride, but for peace. Throughout the day, when tension rises at work, in traffic, during a difficult conversation, they pause, they feel the heat, but instead of reacting, they breathe, they recall a mantra. This too will pass. May I be peaceful. May they be free from suffering. And something begins to shift, not overnight, but over weeks, months. The reactions get slower, the judgments soften, the compassion grows. Soon, people notice, you seem calmer. You used to get so upset. What changed? And your answer is simple. I decided to stop burning my own house down just because someone knocked on the door. This is the real fruit of spiritual practice, not visions or miracles, but emotional transformation. Remember the teachings of the Buddha. He who conquers himself is greater than he who conquers 1,000 in battle. The battlefield is not outside, it's within. The enemy is not your boss, your spouse, your indicates the part of you that chooses rage over reason, revenge over release. So, what happens when you do this work? When you truly begin to subdue your anger, where precepts stop being abstract ideas, they become living forces. You begin to feel the vow body, that energetic field, growing stronger. You walk through the world not with fear, but with steadiness, where decisions are clear. Your heart is lighter. More than that, you inspire others. You become a refuge, not because you're perfect, but because you're practicing. People around you begin to change, not because you preach to them, but because your presence becomes calming. They feel safe around you. Conflicts lessen, conversations deepen, trust grows. And here's the most beautiful part. The karmic cycle that once brought you pain because of habitual anger begins to unravel. You create new karma, karma of peace, forgiveness, of understanding, and that karma protects you, draws you closer to the path, supports your practice. This is what Master Chingji meant when he said, before reciting scriptures or bowing to Buddhists, first subdue your anger. Because without that, everything else is like pouring water into a leaky jar. Now, let me share a final story. Laywoman named Mai had struggled with temper her whole life. Her husband was kind but passive, her children rebellious. He often felt alone and unsupported. Every slight felt like betrayal. Every mistake made her boil with frustration. One day, she attended a talk by a Buddhist nun. The nun said something Mai would never forget. If your tongue speaks harshly, your prayers are carried on smoke. But if your heart speaks gently, your prayers ride on the wind. At night, Wai sat alone and cried. She realized how much he had hurt those he loved, not with fists, but with words. So if he made a change, he didn't announce it, he didn't post about it. He simply began each day with silence. He read sutras, he lit incense not just for the Buddha, but for her own temper. Over time, he learned to pause before speaking, to smile more, softened her tone. Her family noticed. Her husband, for the first time, began opening up. Her children came to her with their worries. He's returned to the house. Years later, at a family gathering, her daughter whispered, "Mom, you've become like a peaceful mountain. Used to fear you. Now I find peace just being near you." This is transformation. This is the reward of subduing anger, not applause, not fame, but inner peace and relational harmony. So I ask you now, what kind of person do you want to become? Do you want to be a flame that burns or a light that guides? Do you want your spiritual practice to be real or performative? Do you want to walk through life armored with precepts or always vulnerable to your own storms? You already have the answer. It's inside you. Your anger is not your enemy. It's your teacher. Listen to it, understand it, and rise above it. Thank you for staying with me through this profound exploration of how anger erodes spiritual discipline and how taming it can restore your sacred vows. Before we end, I want to leave you with this. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be committed. Commit to pausing, commit to breathing, commit to choosing peace. And little by little, you will become the person your soul has always known you could be. Thank you for watching this video. If it resonated with you, please share your story in the comments. What battles have you fought with your own anger? What helped you transform? Subscribe for more deep dives into Buddhist teachings and inner transformation. Like, comment, and support this space so we can continue growing together. Until next time, stay centered, stay compassionate, and remember, the strongest vow is the one protected by a peaceful heart.
Before you leave, here's something special. In Buddhism, we believe that every encounter carries a deeper meaning. Would you like to discover your true soul connection, the one written into your destiny? Take the Soulmate Test today and unveil the hidden truths of your journey. Click the link below and begin your path now.
http://soulmate. You wisdom more, come, white.